But you also asked about the repayment rates. I just want to emphasise, Lamia talked about sexually transmitted debt, which is a problem well known to me. I'm Australian, as you can probably hear, and sexually transmitted debt is a really major problem in Australia with sexually transmitted debt. Women taking loans that they're actually being forced into take them by their men. And that happens a lot in our Indigenous Australian communities, where men force the women to don't take the loan because they've long ago lost any credibility or any creditworthiness. But the reason why it doesn't happen with us, and I just want to emphasise again, Grameen Bank is a profit-making institution. What I'm talking about is a community-owned bank. And so we're not talking about, strange women giving out these loans. The reason why we work with the women on the committee and we take them through very, very, patient training to ensure that they feel very comfortable in sitting on that committee is that they are there, they well know the other women in the community that are coming to them for a loan. And they know that their community's future, in a way, is tied up with those resources. So they are lending to people that they know have done this Vision Commitment Action Workshop, know how they're going to use that money, have then gone through the adult literacy class. And the women themselves, the borrowers, and the men borrowing from our male program, they know that their credibility and their respect by other members of the community is tied up with their repayment rates, because that is community money. And so it's not the loan officers, it's not some foreign loan officer, remote loan officer pushing that they should be repaying. They are doing that because they have all, remember, been through that VCA, and they know that the future welfare of their community is tied up with them treating that loan respectfully and then putting it back in for other people to use. We have, in most instances, very high repayment rates at the 100% rate. Sometimes we don't, and it is the women themselves that then pursue the other women, but they don't pursue them in a difficult way. We have on tape how they sit down and talk together and say, can we talk about why this is a problem? So yes, I know everyone cites those rates. Sometimes I am also a little worried by those citing, but I can tell you that, one, we don't have sexually transmitted debt. Two, that it's the community themselves that is setting the interest rate on which they're lending out the money. So it's not being set as a profit-making institution. And three, the future growth of the community is tied up with getting those resources back into that community bank.
I just wanted to add a few things in terms of the Grameen Bank and to the because that is the dominant model and that is the one that's getting millions of dollars, but also for the group here, because many of the institutions in the US, such as TIAA, CREF, they're also investing our pension plans or in profit-making microfinance institutions. So to the person who asked this question about high loan recovery rates, is that I would ask that if you're doing research in this field, make a distinction between the rate of recovery and the rate of payment, right? The rate of recovery is, the way I analyze it, is how this microfinance institution is recovering it from the borrower, right? And there you may find, by framing it in that way, that certain interesting stories may emerge. A rate of payment, the way I frame it in my work, is one that because you have made a profit, you are able to pay, right? So there is coercion in the first and lack of coercion in the second. And this other thing that I just wanted to mention is that when I first started my research, I asked a young man who was sitting outside a Grameen Bank office, and I said to him, and his wife was inside getting the loan, and I said, to whom does the loan belong, right? And he laughed and he said, to my wife, but since she belongs to me, it belongs to, The loan belongs to me. So, I mean, these are things that, you know, if you are going to look at the kind of data that's given to you, that you may want to start thinking about what are the different kinds of questions you can bring to bear, and what are the social conditions within the, you know, various different countries that it's taking place. What is the culture of the organization? And I think, you know, those things sort of complicate the kinds of answers you get.
Can I just add one thing? I'm just looking at my notes. One of the reasons why sometimes we don't get full repayment rates is, and bringing the conversation back to rights, in Malawi, which has very high incidence of HIV/AIDS, our little microfinance facilities actually lend to people with HIV/AIDS, and this is a very rare thing because we believe that just because they are living with that disease should not take away their right to dignity or to have the opportunity to explore other aspects of their lives. And sadly, sometimes that means that the repayment rate in those communities is not as high as the others. But I must say that we also have some wonderful stories of Sophie, for example. I've got a story here, who has been living with HIV/AIDS for 6 years. She took a very small loan. 6 years ago, she's repaid, and has many since then, and has now got a very thriving fish selling business, and is putting her brother through university. Over here.
My name's Loretta Ross. I'm with Sister Song, Women of Color Reproductive Health Collective in Atlanta. And my question is to Radhika and to Cynthia, somewhere between the two of you. I hope to have this addressed. I mean, I know when we elected President Obama, we were electing a neoliberal versus a neo-fascist. So we were kind of clear that we were not electing a progressive to office. But at the same time, it's ironic to me that just when the human rights framework is getting real traction in the United States, bubbling up from the grassroots, there seems to be this concerted effort to dismiss it, to say it's not relevant, that we need to go beyond it, that it's not potent. I mean, it's just amazing, the critics, the skeptics, the naysayers that are erupting just when it's assuming power in the United States to actually change things in the United States, which in my mind would change things around the world. And so how are we to deal with both offering a critique of a neoliberal agenda represented by such a transformative figure, number one, in President Obama, and at the same time address the critics, the skeptics, and the naysayers who in fact are undermining the human rights framework in a very smart-ass way, just when we're finding it useful to building movement in the United States?